Terrific. Thank you so much, Francis. And thanks, everybody, for being here today. We have a great lineup of speakers, and I want to get right to them. But to start off, I want to just tell you a little bit about why we're here. I'm Carrie Lucas, president of Independent Women's Forum. Thank you. And I'm a proud member of Independent Women's Network. But really, what's most important today is I am a mom of 5 school-age kids who are attending public school here in Fairfax County, Virginia, right across the way. 2 of my kids are here with me today, Max and Maggie, so thanks for coming, guys. And really, my most important job is to raise my kids to be kind, confident, productive, and patriotic Americans. Those are my values, and that's my job. It's not my school board's job, and it's certainly not the federal government's job. Yet at all levels of government, we are seeing politicians who are trying to push parents aside and are taking over more and more of what used to be considered private life. And you're going to hear a lot today about K-12 public schools, which is an incredibly important topic. But I also want everyone to recognize that another battle is brewing. Congress is back in town, and right now they are pushing a proposal that would make the federal government the primary funder of child care and preschool programs. And do you know what that means? Yeah, you know what it means. You know, with great money comes great control. If this happens, the federal government will decide what our toddlers are taught and who gets to care for our babies. They will be setting the regulations, and those providers, especially faith-based providers, that don't want to go along will be pushed out of business. Parents should take notice. Everything that you are concerned about with K-12 public schools, that's your mask policies, CRT, radical gender ideology, unions who simply don't care about serving children and families, you will be fighting these same battles when it comes to daycare and preschool center if the federal government takes over. We simply cannot let this happen. That's what they're proposing, and we have to say no. These are our children. They are not theirs. I'm proud to stand with a great group of parents today, and these parents that are standing up around the country. We hope many are joining online. And this is the start of something big. Independent Women's Forum looks forward to working with all of you to give our children, the school system, and the country and the opportunities that they deserve. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone. I love being with so many fabulous moms and dads who are fighting to protect their kids. I'm the director of the Independent Women's Network, and I'm the co-host of WMAL's O'Connor and Company. And Larry is actually here to be speaking next. Let's face it, we're all here to see Larry anyway. But the most important title I hold is that I'm a mom. I'm a Northern Virginia mom. And now, after years of being a public school mom, I'm not anymore. I'm a proud homeschooling mom, and to my son Jack, who's actually home studying physics, or he should be, maybe he's watching TV, and I have two other boys who are in Catholic school. Not all parents have the ability to make these changes and embrace these opportunities, which is why I'm fighting for better public schools. But it's more than just schools. I'm fighting for a fairer and freer country. That's why I'm encouraging all of you, this is a bit of a plug for IWN, to join me at the Independent Women's Network. IWN isn't just about getting active. It's about working together, finding fellowship, and making a difference in our communities. At IWN, we offer a ton of resources to help you get involved effectively. We're also starting in-person IWN chapters around the country. If you're ready to start your own chapter, come and talk to an IWN staffer. Angel is here. There she is. You can talk to her. Jenny Avis is here. There she is. And of course, Frances, who just did that great job singing the national anthem. There you are. She is also a vital IWN team member, so find us in the crowd. There are postcards in your bags that you received when you got here that has a special code that you can join at a discount. So go to iwnetwork.com and sign up. I can't wait to have each of you on the network. on our members-only community. I'm excited to stand with you today. I'm here to send a message to the government that I am in charge of my kids, and it's time that they took a seat and stayed in their lane. Thank you.
All right, we're so excited. We've got several members of Congress here, and we're going to start with Virginia Fox. Thank you so much for coming, Congresswoman. And please welcome your remarks.
Well, thank you very much to all the IWF people who are here. Let me say that it's an honor to be with you today, and I want to, as we say in Congress, so we don't have to repeat what others have said, I want to associate myself with the remarks that my friends have made before me. I am the Republican leader of the Education and Labor Committee, and I want you to know that your voices are being heard loud and clear. And some of us have been saying these things for a long time. We're very proud of the victory for parental rights in Virginia's election, and now we know what other people know, what I've known for a long time: parents are a force to be reckoned with. Republicans on the Education Committee are dedicated to making sure the First Amendment rights of parents are protected, all of the First Amendment rights. We send our children to school to prepare them for the future, not to see them turned against their own country through critical race theory inspired teaching. We send our children to school to learn how to read and write, not to expose them to lewd and graphic books in the school library. And we send our children to school expecting them to be safe, not to find out sexual assaults are being covered up out of political convenience. While the left has been focused on infusing school curriculum with progressive dogmas, our children have been falling more and more behind academically, especially during the pandemic. You know, a phrase came to me as we were thinking about this event in terms of the left creating the curriculum and what's happening in terms of children failing. Let us remember, in terms of the experts, the bureaucrats who think they're experts, remember, the Titanic was built by experts and the Ark was built by amateurs, okay? So they may want to say that the parents are amateurs, but we're building the Ark, okay? Our children aren't pawns. And by the way, I'm a mother and a grandmother. They should never be sacrificed to accomplish the left's political agenda. When policies stop serving students, they must be reevaluated. Blindly trusting those in charge is no longer an option. Parents must have a say. Remember, we're talking about the Titanic and the Ark. Parental rights are non-negotiable. Americans should never be forced to relinquish their parental rights to the government. And I think that all of us are sending that message. Those of us who are part of the government are sending that message. We want to make sure that we make our own personal medical decisions or what kids learn in school. Our country's supposed to be a self-governed republic, not a nanny state. We can no longer pretend that bureaucrats in Washington, politicians who take money from teachers' unions, or even school boards will put our children first. Only parents can be trusted to make children the top priority. So parents must keep standing strong, they must keep showing up to school board meetings, and they must keep fighting for their children. As a former school board member, I saw that happen and am pleased to see it happening more broadly today. It's time to put our children's safety above politics, their well-being above special interest, and education above ideology. We're ready for a new era in education, one that will better prepare our children for the future and teach them how to be citizens of this great republic. Thank you again for having me. It's an honor.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have Congresswoman Harshbarger. Thank you so much. From Tennessee. All right, thank you.
Yes. Hey, hello, y'all. Yeah. You know, it's a pleasure to join you today and to fight for parents' rights in our children's education. Listen, I am also on Ed and Labor, and Virginia is such a great teacher, and she pushes forward your rights as a parent to make sure that you educate them the way you want to educate them. You know, I am a mother as well and a grandmother, and I know how important it is that parents have a voice in their children's education. I taught Sunday school for 24 years, and what they didn't get at home, a lot of times we would try to do that in a church setting. Parents don't want government bureaucrats telling them that they know better when it comes to how and what children are being taught in the classroom, period. Because no bureaucrat will ever know what's best for your children. Parents have come out from all around the country to voice their valid concerns regarding the rise in critical race theory, which the left says isn't being taught in the schools. And we parents know better than that. Just ask the parents in Virginia. Yeah, because they proved that, yes, it was in that race. Democrats have deemed reasonable and concerned parents who get in the way of the radical agenda as domestic terrorists. Okay? They put them in the same category as, for example, Unabomber, for God's sakes. What they're doing is unjust. You know, instead of domestic terrorists, let's just say we're dang tired of what they're trying to do to the parents, okay? They're being told by bureaucrats that they are better equipped to raise our children than we are. Parents have every right to be deeply concerned about this. This theory is an attempt to divide our nation on the basis of skin color. Those people are the racists. Listen, this manipulates those precious little minds and makes them think. How many times has someone come to me and said, my son came home thinking he was in tears because they think that they've done something wrong, being called the oppressor or being called the oppressed, to say you can't be everything that God designed you to be. It's pathetic. Furthermore, our children are being taught to state their pronouns and question whether they were born a girl or whether they were born a boy. They're trying to manipulate those precious children to question their identity. These ideologies have no place in our country, and especially not in our classrooms. Children are vulnerable to this kind of radical thinking, and it's up to us parents and legislators to do everything we can to prevent it being forced on our youth. You know what's even worse? Teachers' unions have been fighting to keep schools closed amidst the pandemic and our children to wear masks all day. You know, I've been a pharmacist for 35 years. And we know that COVID poses little threat to these young children. And unions want to halt education. And I know as a pharmacist what masks do to these precious little ones. In-person classroom experiences with the teachers and peers is absolutely essential to children's developments. We're already behind as a nation compared to other nations, and we can't get down any further. We cannot let this pandemic stunt our children's academic growth. And I'll continue to be a vocal part of that and fight for the parents and the rights in schools. Big government, which is AKA Big Brother, is threatening the well-being of our children, and I'll not stand for it. Our students are the future of this great nation, and we've got to protect them from this radical indoctrination. And it's our jobs as parents and legislators to protect these precious, treasured trusts from heaven from this indoctrination that the left's designed for them. Just remember this statement, and Ronald Reagan said it best: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And I don't intend to let that happen on my watch. And thank you, guys. And you keep fighting. You know that you have champions in Congress that are going to stand behind you, and they better not mess with Mama Bears.
Next up, Congresswoman Tenney. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you guys are doing this. Thank you to the Independent Women's Forum. I got a big, long speech. I totally echo the sentiments of Virginia Fox, who's a great champion on the education side. My new colleague, Diane Harshberg, obviously you heard from her. You know, this is something we've seen before. And as a mother who was educated in public schools, my son went to the same school on the same bus. You're not going to find too many people who live across the street from the house they grew up in. But I did, and we had a good education. But I see this terrible situation happening, particularly in states like New York. We've seen it in Virginia, which became a national issue. And this is why it's so important that you stand up at this moment, because there was a time in New York when we had Common Core, and we fought back. We, as legislators in the minority, parents fought back against this curriculum. We're at that precipice again, and now is time to fight back. Because though some of us can afford to maybe homeschool because we're not at work, or we can afford to go to private schools, think of the people out there who cannot afford this, and their children are put in this situation where they're being taught critical race theory, where they're being taught to hate each other. Like, I think of these cute Max and Maggie sitting here. Think about how fun school used to be. And I'm getting older. I'm up there in the seniors world. But school was fun. We learned. We didn't talk about what was different and what was, dividing us. We talked about what brought us together and what we could learn, and the love of learning and critical thinking, not critical race theory. And that's why I just see this as so devastating to our children. They're so precious, but they're smart too. They know what's going on. They know things aren't right, and they communicate that to us as parents. So as a legislator, I love that your expression is, I don't co-parent with government, and you never should. I had so many experiences, even in public school, and had I not been a lawyer, a little more aggressive, maybe a little more, had the means to go after them, I went to my school district and said, this isn't right for certain things happening with my child. But there are people out there who cannot. That's why every one of you here today, and all of you standing up, are a voice for these children who do not have the advantages, who are going to be taught these terrible things in school, and they're not going to learn to be independent thinkers. They're not going to learn to be children who are going to grow up and be great citizens, as Virginia Fox referenced, of our self-governing constitutional republic. That's critical. We do not want 1984 here. We don't want a central government. We don't want a central school district. And if you want to know what central school districts and central government looks like, come to New York State, because we have a very powerful state ed department that tends to crowd out the rights of our local school districts, which in the end hurts our parents. And we have people get elected to these school boards who are critically important. They're parents, and yet they feel there's nothing they can do. And I think Virginia alluded to it, or Ms. Lucas alluded to it earlier. When there's so much money, that gives power, and power is taken away from you. New York has among the highest property taxes, among the highest per pupil rate to teach our students, but yet look at New York City. The very, very small fraction even can pass a math test or even have basic reading skills after the literally tens of millions, billions that we put into the education. So I'm just pleased today to be here. We're going to continue to fight. I know that you've been labeled as domestic terrorists. I haven't heard the Unabomber in a while. That's certainly interesting. And I'm very concerned also as a lawyer, and where I'm in a profession where I'm held to a standard and a standard of ethics. And yet our top lawyer in this nation, our Attorney General, has been engaging with the National School Boards Association in a memo to try to label you as domestic terrorists. That is completely offensive. It is offensive, and it is also unethical, and it's inappropriate under our system of government. We should never have a government that is vilifying our own people, using the power and the money of our government to do that. And unfortunately, we've seen that in some time. I just wanted to close with a quote from Nelson Mandela, of all people, and why it's so important dealing with our children, and why this love of learning and the love of going to school and the help that our schools can provide our children and to our families and our communities, while parents still have a say. He says, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. So don't let this education system teach our children to hate. Teach them to love each other. Teach them to care. Teach them to be mentors to children in their communities. I have to tell you my last, just a personal story on this. My son went to public schools. I never imagined he would ever, end up being admitted and going to the U.S. Naval Academy. He's now serving as a Marine, and very proud of him. Through public school system, we were concerned. But I'll tell you what he wrote his essay on as a student. He wrote it on the mentoring program that I got him involved with, where he helped students in school who were disadvantaged, who had trouble with math and reading. And at first I kind of dragged him there. You know how that goes. He ended up loving it, and he loved being a mentor. So when you're out there, and not just parents, have your children be mentors to other children in the school, and be kind to them and set them on the right path. And I'm just so glad you're doing this. I really appreciate your theme and what you're doing. We're going to continue to fight for you. You have some real tough mama bears out here fighting for you, between me, Diane Harshberger, Virginia Fox, and so many others out there. We are going to fight for you. Come to us. Give us what you need us to talk about, and what to say, and what to advocate for, and we will be there. So thanks again, and God bless you. I'm really honored to speak here.
All right, thank you. And we are a women's group, but we love men, especially men who are fighting for parents' rights. So Congressman Chip Roy, let's go up. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Thanks for being out here. This is such an important topic, and I'm honored to participate with so many of my colleagues and so many great folks in this organization that are fighting for parents, for women, for kids, more importantly for freedom and for our way of life. It's great to see many friends here. You know, what is probably most interesting is that while I'm a United States Congressman from Texas, from Central Texas, I actually went to high school in Loudoun County. And I went to high school at Loudoun Valley High School in Purcellville, Virginia, and graduated in 1990, a few decades ago. But so what happened there in May, and then what happened there again in October, hit home. It was very personal. There are friends of mine who still live in Loudoun County, and so I got on the horn and was trying to talk to folks. And I got to know and talk to Scott Smith, the father of the young lady who was first assaulted in May, and sought his guidance about how I should approach this subject. Because when we had the Attorney General of the United States before the House Judiciary Committee, I wanted to take him to task. And so I basically got Scott's permission to take him to task. Let me just say that what we saw unfold in Virginia is happening all across the country. And it's happening all across the country because of y'all and because of truth seekers demonstrating to the American people what's actually happening in our schools. This pandemic has obviously harmed a lot of people in many respects. The government's response may have harmed more people than the actual pandemic. But importantly, one thing that we've gotten out of this is the veil has been lifted on a corrupt education system teaching our children that America is evil. And that couldn't be more important for the future of this country and the health of our republic and the health of democracy. Our children are our responsibility as parents. I'm the proud father of a 12-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. And everything about what my wife, Karen, and I do is dedicated to raising them to be fearful of God and to believe in liberty and to love their neighbors and to try to leave a country better than they found it. That's what we focus on all the time. That's why my wife and I, despite being products of K through law school, public education system, now scrimp and save to send our kids to a private classical Christian school. But we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't. We should be in control of our schools. And that's why right now the most important thing we can be doing is taking back our school boards, taking back our schools across this country, reinstating in our children the proper understanding and respect for the history and the greatness of this country unapologetically, and making sure that they are being raised according to the values that parents want them to be raised to. Not bureaucrats, not a school board that feels entitled to teach my child what he or she believes, but rather what we believe as people. Not what the Secretary of Education says, not what the National Association of School Boards say, but rather what parents say. I want to just thank the Independent Women's Forum for doing this, but also just standing up as a strong voice for women across America. You know, every time you speak out in the House Judiciary Committee, for example, in defense of the Texas heartbeat bill, as I did on the House Judiciary Committee, you get accused of not being able to speak for women. Well, I represent a lot of women, and I represent my wife, and I represent a lot of conservative women in my district who don't like being told that the views of radical leftists in this building are their views. And so I'm proud to stand up in defense of those women. I'm proud to represent them. But I'm proud of each and every one of you for being a strong voice and being out there making the case that we all know is important about the centrality of family, the centrality of God, the centrality of parents in raising our children. I'll just close by saying that, you know, I was blessed to go down to the University of Virginia a few weeks ago. That's where I went. That's my undergraduate institution. And I spoke in defense of Thomas Jefferson. And in that speech I did with Rich Lowry, the editor of National Review, also went to UVA, I talked about the fact that we put our faith in principles, not in princes. And that's what we do as Americans. And if there's an everlasting lesson that we learn from the life of Jefferson and what the words that he put together in the Declaration of Independence and the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom and the numerous letters that communicated his belief system, it was that. It was that we put our faith in principles, not in princes. We believe in freedom. We believe in limited government. We believe in the Lord Almighty, and we believe in the rights of parents to raise their children the way they see fit. So God bless you all, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Next up is Congresswoman Hartzler. Thank you, from Missouri. Thank you so much.
Hey. Well, what a beautiful day and what an encouraging sight to see so many great patriots out here standing up for their children and for America. I am a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a former public school teacher who is conservative and believes in teaching accurate history and our foundational principles. And I'm also so very, very proud of you. I want to thank you for standing up for your kids and for America. You know, too long, the liberal elites have used the education system as a method to indoctrinate our kids and to raise up a new generation of voters that believes and thinks like they believe the world should be thought of. And if there's anything positive that has come out of COVID is that the veil has been lifted and that parents have seen what is being taught to their kids and they say, no more, no more. This is not what we want my son, my daughter to be taught, and we're going to take back our schools. You know, Abraham Lincoln was correct when he said that the philosophy of one generation that is taught to our children will become the philosophy of the government in the next generation. And that's what the liberals know, but also that's what we know too. And we want to stand for accurate history and for children to know that they can become anything that they want in this country, that we are home of the American dream and that they should be proud of their country. You know, I have introduced a bill. Let me back up. I'm a teacher, like I said. When I came here, they asked me, what committees do you want to be on? I assume you want to be on Education Committee, right, Representative Hartzler, because that's your bachelor's and master's degree. I said no, because I don't believe the federal government should have a very big role at all in education. And so I chose to be on Agriculture and Armed Services Committee. And so when people ask, what is the answer here? I think most of it should be at the state and local level, but I have discovered, I'm on Armed Services Committee, that our Department of Defense does oversee 160 of our schools that are on our military bases. There's some here in America, Fort Hood, Fort Campbell. Those are some run by the federal government, as well as military bases in other countries. And so I've introduced the No CRT for Our Military Kids Act to make sure, yes, that our children of our military are not taught that the country that their parents are fighting for is a bad country, that they should be ashamed and they should feel bad, and that their destiny is determined by their skin color. And so we're going to continue to advocate here at the federal level in Congress for what we can to make sure CRT is stopped and dead in its tracks here. But also, I'm so proud of what you're doing in your local communities. And I want to encourage you to run for school board, run for office. Yes, too many times We are on the defensive, and we should be on the offensive. I wrote a book a few years ago called Running God's Way, Step by Step to Successful Political Campaign, to encourage and equip more people of faith to run successfully for office at all levels of government. Because so many times, as we know, the cultural battles are taking place at the local level. And we shouldn't just fix our eyes on who is elected for Congress and White House, although that's very, very important. But it's just as important that we have good people at the school board, on the library board, on the city council. And so if that's you, I encourage you to run. But let's continue to stand together for what is right. The momentum is on our side. We saw what happened in Virginia, and I believe it's just a foreshadow of what we're going to see next year. We're going to take back our country, and we're going to take back our schools for our kids. Thank you. God bless.
And I hate going after members of Congress. I am Nikki Neely. I am the president and founder of Parents Defending Education. I don't know if anybody remembers when JFK went on a foreign trip many years ago. He said, I am the president, but more importantly, I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris. More importantly, I am Astra Nomani's coworker, and she is so sorry she couldn't be here with any of you today. She is one of our great warriors in Northern Virginia, and we are so thankful for having her on our team. I'm also glad to have Mary Miller here, as well as Harry Jackson, also from the Parents Defending Education team. We are a national membership organization that gives parents the knowledge and the tools they need to get involved in their children's education. We don't just criticize from the sidelines, we act, and that's why it's such an honor to be here with all of you, because you all act as well. You are not content to just take what is being done to your children. You are fighting, and I'm so proud to have you in my foxhole. We wouldn't be in this if we thought that all we could do is get on Facebook and do a bunch of complaining. We get out in the community, we try to make things happen. So we do that through empowering people. Unfortunately, not enough Americans know what their rights are. They don't know what the First Amendment is, or what Title VI is, or Title IX is, and so they don't know where those red lines are. So if and when, and I do mean when, those lines are crossed by our schools, they don't know that anything should happen about it. It should be done. So we tell people what their rights are and encourage them to do something about it. We have guides to jargon that's going on, because a lot of our schools try and talk down to people. They want to confuse you. They don't want you involved in this process. The next thing we do, we try to expose things. We believe very firmly sunshine is the best disinfectant. I know it's been referenced before, but the National School Board Association, after they had all their mess and their letter came out, we filed a bunch of public records requests, and my goodness, did we find out that they had been working with the White House for many, many weeks in advance. Funny. But we have a tip line. We receive hundreds of tips a week from across the country, and what we do is we just put that out there. Bob in Omaha might not know how to get something to Fox News or Tucker Carlson, but we do. And when you tell those stories, we have found that moves people. That changes the middle's mind about this. And so it's so important. If you hear something, say something. Let people know about what's taking place in their backyard, because it lets other people speak out. It gives them courage. Courage is contagious. And finally, we engage. We encourage everybody, get off of your computer, get out and do something. And doing something can be as simple as passing on a tip, creating an anonymous Instagram account, running for school board, running for PTA. There's a difference between a PTA and a PTO. I didn't know that until this year. Little things like that. Filing complaints with the Office of Civil Rights, either at the federal level or in your state. We filed comments with the federal government. The Department of Education tried to sneak a critical race theory program in through a grant program. We helped almost 12,000 people file complaints saying, no, not with my tax dollars. How dare you do that? And we also file lawsuits. Right now we have 2 open lawsuits, one in the city of New York, where some activists wanted to inject more race into the decision-making process for the specialized high school program because they felt that it was not racist enough. And we also have a lawsuit going in Wellesley, Massachusetts, because Wellesley thought that it was a good idea to have racially segregated affinity groups. I thought that was a violation of Brown versus Board of Education, but who am I? And they also have a bias response policy where they encourage students to rant on each other. Families in the district were calling it the snitch line. Strangely, students became terrified to talk about anything remotely controversial, so they just weren't talking at all. Again, a violation of students' First Amendment rights, unacceptable, and we're fighting back against it. We want to help parents be better advocates in their community, and I know IWF and everybody here at this rally does as well. I'm so grateful for all of you for caring, and I look forward to working with you now and going forward to take back our schools. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. And I'm going to invite Congressman Banks to come up and join us on stage. Thank you so much. much for coming.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. As the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the largest conservative caucus on Capitol Hill, I'm here to tell you that Republicans, more than ever before, are the party of parents. How about that? We're the party that puts parents first in our agenda. And when we win back the majority, which I promise you Republicans are going to win back the majority in the midterm election next year, we are going to fight against those who want to take parents out of the classroom. I want to tell you that this week I am introducing a bill along with my friend Senator Ted Cruz in the Senate that will ban vaccine mandates on school children. How about that? The Republican Study Committee is also championing Representative Burgess's Say No to Indoctrination Act, which bans federal funds from being used to teach critical race theory inside or outside of the classroom. We're very committed to that. And you just heard from a great friend of mine, Representative Vicky Hartzler, who's running for the United States Senate. I'm also supporting, and Republican Study Committee supports, her bill, the No Critical Race Theory for Our Military Kids Act, that ensures military schools and the Pentagon are not promoting critical race theory. Look, my friends, parents have a right to know what their kids are taught. That's why I and the Republican Study Committee and conservatives in the Congress are pushing for Congress to pass the CRT Transparency Act to ensure that parents have better access to their children's curriculum. That's what we're committed to. Republicans and conservatives, we believe that parents belong in the classroom and politicians should never come anywhere near the classrooms where our children are taught. That's what I'm going to continue to fight for. I appreciate what all of you stand for here today. Thank you for being a part of a very important cause. God bless.
Hello, my name is Ian Pryor. I'm the executive director of Fight for Schools, and I live in Loudoun County. And as Congressman Roy said, you know, Loudoun County is really a microcosm of what's going on all across the country. So I'll answer the question that I've been getting for the past 2 weeks is what happened in Loudoun County and why does it matter? And I'll tell you the story. Really, it started last year when you had a group of parents that started organizing, and they started to go to school board meetings, write to their school board members, write to their state legislators about trying to get schools reopened. At the same time, you had other parents that were sitting at home, working from home, seeing what their kids were learning, how they were being taught, and they started looking into what was going on in Loudoun County Public Schools. But it really hit an inflection point in March of this year when you had a private, viewpoint-restricted, closed Facebook group that included 6 school board members, the Soros-backed Commonwealth Attorney, which is our prosecutor, a member of the Board of Supervisors, and dozens of teachers and school administrators. And one of our government officials suggested that there needed to be pushback against people that were opposed to the utilization of critical race theory concepts in school. What happened after that was essentially McCarthyism. They started listing dozens of parents for, I guess, not being sufficiently woke. You ended up getting parents on that list, up to 70, that were opposed to critical race theory, but most of them just wanted schools to be reopened. They were going through school board minutes to see who said what, putting things in there. You know, this person's concerned with the First Amendment. Oh, God forbid. Somebody goes to the school board and speaks up for teachers and students in the First Amendment. And, you know, I found myself on that list. And I also found that a lot of those parents really had had enough, and they walked into the wrong bar. So what we did was we started Fight for Schools, and I call it the Back Deck Pack because really the idea came when a bunch of parents, some of whom had never met before, met on a back deck and said, listen, the problem here with school board elections is that nobody pays attention. And so I suggested, having worked in politics before, let's set up a political action committee that works locally in Loudoun County to engage in school board elections so that we can communicate who stands for what. I mean, you're going to get your flyer saying this person wants more recess, but what do they really stand for? You never know until they get into power. And the first mission that we had was to try and remove those school board members that were in that group. And so we started a petition pursuant to Virginia law, and we started collecting signatures. And what we saw during that time was a growing movement. And I always like to say, you need to activate, investigate, and communicate. And so in addition to going out and gathering signatures to try and legally remove these school board members for violating the law and their own code of conduct, we really started to become a watchdog organization. Loudoun County Public Schools would say, we don't use critical race theory. Oh, here's the bill that says you do when you trained teachers on it last May. And here's the PowerPoint that's all about critical race theory, talking about how Western liberalism, meritocracy, and equal opportunity perpetuate systemic racism. That does not sound like something that should be going on in our schools. They said, well, they're lying. That was one time. Well, here's an email from the last superintendent that says, yes, critical race theory concepts do align with our teacher trainings and our social justice instruction. And so the continued mistakes from these bureaucrats just kept adding fuel to the fire. They put a teacher on leave for going to speak at a school board meeting about a proposed policy. He was speaking as a citizen. Now, that case went on all summer. He sued the school, Loudoun County Public Schools. He won at the circuit court, won at the Supreme Court, and just yesterday he settled with the county, who now has to pay him $20,000 in legal fees, remove that suspension from his record. Oh, and he's still part of a lawsuit challenging the transgender policy that they initially put him on suspension for. So, great job for the First Amendment right there. And throughout all of this, we never really could have gained the traction we gained without the continued missteps, like I said, from these bureaucrats. Shutting down public comment because of applause. That's a First Amendment right. I'm sorry that they don't like that we're not applauding for, what they stand for. And of course, what we learned in October was that there was a sexual assault in a bathroom in May. The father of the girl was arrested at a June 22nd school board meeting. The superintendent lied about it. The school board did nothing to correct the record, allowed the kid to go to a different school where he just pled no contest yesterday to a second sexual assault. So they covered it up, lied about it, all to pass their political agenda. That has no place in our schools. And what did this all lead to? This led to a moment of representative democracy, because the people that were going out for Fight for Schools and other groups, they weren't going out there to try and win an election. They were going out there to try and make a difference in their community. But the people running for office in Virginia listened to them. They heard them, and they spoke to them. Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, Jason Miyares. And that is how they won an election. And that is how representative democracy works. And so what are the lessons that we learned from this? Well, that's the lesson I learned from it, is, it is not about Republican or Democrat or independent. It is about us. It is about us engaging in our representative democracy. It is supply and demand. We demand, they supply. And if it doesn't work that way, then it's not working. So we need to keep going. It is important that we keep going because they're not going to stop. So what lessons did they learn? Well, I was trying to think how could they mess up and give me a story after the election. I didn't think they'd work so quickly, but they did. One of the members of our Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, and Larry knows Julie Briskman, she actually gained office by giving the middle finger to the former President of the United States. That's her claim to fame. So on Friday, she called our organization alt-right. So we're domestic terrorists and now we're alt-right. Never mind the fact that our volunteers and the people that added 25,000 signatures, who are her constituents, to remove the school board are made up of everybody. It transcends political ideology, transcends race, transcends ethnicity, transcends religion. So she said, we're all alt-right, which tells me they haven't learned a thing. The whole issue in Loudoun County started when you had bureaucrats, administrators, your woke neighbors saying, you're racist or you're fascist or you're sexist or you voted for Trump and you're a bad person. They have not learned a thing. They are not going to stop, so we cannot stop either. And what we need to make sure of with our education system is that we are building future leaders. We are making intelligent human beings that are skillful, that are compassionate, that treat everybody the way they want to be treated, and that are mentally tough. We cannot have kids growing up to adults that get offended by microaggressions and a misstep and a joke. They need to be mentally tough in order to compete in the 21st century. They're going to deal with challenges that we can't even imagine in 2021. And if we are making a culture of people that consider themselves victims, they will never have success. So we need to stay in the fight to get that future. We can never back down, and we need to go get it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ian. Representative Carol Miller. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I am Congresswoman Carol Miller from West by God, Virginia. And it's so exciting to see so many of you all out here and the precious children whose hands are probably absolutely freezing while they hold those signs because it's chilly. I am a mother and a grandmother, and I know the challenges that you all face every day. Our children are impacted by the people who they're around daily. I know that because I certified to teach a long time ago, and because I ended up working at home and managing real estate and apartments and things like that. I was a stay-at-home mother. I never knew how many feet were going to be under my table at night for dinner. But I will tell you, I always had enough food for everybody, and they had certain laws. The rules at the house were you can't come to the table with a hat on, had to wear a shirt, you had to say grace, and when you finished, you said, "Thank you for a nice dinner, may I be excused?" And those kids are now adults raising their children the same way because they learned it from another adult. And you know, a big part of their education, of course, is their teachers. And that's the problem, because they're in school every single day, and it's heartbreaking to see what's happened because our children are now not taught the skills of how to think, but instead they're being taught what to think. And as parents, we don't like what's happening right now because the overbearing liberal activists and politicians are trying to impose this terrible radical agenda on our children, and they want to exclude parents from the conversation. And we definitely need to be part of that conversation. So I am proud of the parents in the country who have stepped forward to fight for their children, to fight against the bad policies. And it was so heartwarming to see the parents in Virginia stand up for what they believed in a few weeks ago. So I'm here in Washington working very hard to make sure that your voice is heard. I am still a parent, and I'm still involved with those now grandchildren. I read to them, I sing to them, I do all the things you want to do with your children, because it's important that we remain a strong voice in our children's life. So I'm very brief, but I want to thank you all for being here today on this gorgeous, chilly day, and for standing up for your children, for your beliefs, and for the future of our country. God bless you all. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Larry. Oh, that's very nice of you. I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm the morning show host on WMAL here in the Washington area, and a columnist at townhall.com. And well, because we do radio in Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia is sort of, our local story. So we've been talking about everything that's happened at these school board meetings well before anybody announced their candidacy, by the way, for the governor's race. This has been going on, as Ian said, for well over a year now. And listen, I have the fortune to be able to interview all of these great, incredible leaders, these men and women who made such a difference this time around. So I'm at a loss as to what I can bring to the table. You're going to hear from Ian. You heard from Austra's partner. You're going to hear from Stacey Langton. You're going to hear from so many other great leaders that made this different. So what I'd like to do is take a few moments here to just acknowledge some of the people who aren't here that helped make this happen. I want to start with Terry McAuliffe. I mean, my God, what a gift. I mean, he said the quiet part out loud, right? And I mean, do you think that we're going to hear another politician in the next election next year say that they don't think parents have a right to have any say about how their kids are taught in the schools? I don't think we're going to hear that again. So thank you, Terry, for saying that. By the way, I want to thank everybody from Joy Reid to Rachel Maddow to Terry McAuliffe. Again, he gets a double mention for saying that critical race theory in the curriculum of our schools is a conspiracy theory and a lie. They literally they say that critical race theory is not in the curriculum. At the same time, they celebrate the 1619 Project as part of the curriculum in the schools. You can't make it up, and they are lying to us. And that's the key. Another acknowledgement, one last one for Terry McAuliffe. Just a hint, free advice, anyone running for office, don't tell the voters that the most important, passionate issue that's motivating them every single day is just a bunch of bullshit. That's not a good idea. Now, I'd also like to thank somebody without whom this wouldn't have happened, and that's former President Barack Obama. Because for 8 years we were told that we were to honor, celebrate, and almost deify the idea of community organizing, right? But that was his main qualification. Oh my God, how dare you criticize community organizing? And they were right. Community organizing is great when it's for our causes. And what you see around you right now is community organizing. What you saw in those school board meetings is community organizing. What you're going to see from this point forward is community organizing. So thank you for teaching us a valuable lesson about that. And finally, thank you. Fine. And that's good for Barack Obama because he doesn't get enough adulation. Finally, honestly, I mean, this is the single individual, and of course, it's Independent Women's Network, so this is a woman. Without this woman, none of this would have been possible, none of it at all. Let's hear it for Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers. I mean, she's the one who Terry brought in to seal the deal, that final rally. She made a difference. She moved the needle because I think, Youngkin won by 2 points. It probably would have been close. Much closer than that, but Randi Weingarten made the difference. And I want to sort of dwell on this for a quick moment because this is, again, free advice. You know, don't tell voters that their main issue is bullshit, number one. Number two, really important free advice. Stop accepting endorsements from the teachers' unions. What we need to do to turn this around and really make this conversation go back to the parents and back to, think about this for a minute. How Orwellian does this get? They're public schools, they tell us, but you, the members of the public, don't have a say in what goes on in the public schools. They're not public schools. They're government-run schools until we get a seat at the table again. Let's get back to the place where any check that is delivered to a person who works in that building that is signed by the American Federation of Teachers or the National Education Association, that is a poison pill. The endorsement of the teachers union is a black mark on a politician's record. And the check that has that teachers union money contained in it has strings attached to it that are dirty and despicable and are harming your children. So thank you, Randi Weingarten, for finally pulling the veil back. It was she and her union that forced your kids to learn for a year and a half from your kitchen table on a laptop, but you were able to see exactly what was going on. Ian Pryor is right. No one pays attention to the school board meetings. That was by design. No one pays attention to the school board elections. That was by design. They don't want you to see what's going on. They don't want you participating in those elections. That's in the past. This is the future. Thank you very much.
Larry's tall. I'm I just first wanted to say thank you so much to the IWF for inviting me here today, because it's an honor to be included with all of you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Stacy Langton, and I am a mother of 6 children. I have 4 children in private Catholic school, and I have 2 children in Fairfax County Public Schools. And I went to my school board meeting on September 23rd because I found pornography and pedophilia in my son's high school library at Fairfax High School. Now, that wasn't well received by my school board, and they did not give me any accountability or even receive the message. They cut my mic, cut the feed, and fled the room. That wasn't the reaction I was looking for. It wasn't how it went in my head. And, you know, I didn't go to the school board meeting that night thinking about the election. The election never occurred to me. I didn't go there thinking I was going to swing the election for Glenn Youngkin, but that's what happened. So I'm happy about that. I'm thrilled because, like Larry said, let's thank Terry McAuliffe for making the gaffe that he did that night at the debate and saying that we're not going to let parents go into the libraries and start pulling books off the shelves. And we're not going to let parents tell schools what they should teach. Well, excuse me, Terry McAuliffe, but pornography in the presence of minor children is illegal. And it shouldn't have been in the library in the first place. And I take great offense also to former President Barack Obama telling me and telling other parents that my outrage is faux. No, it isn't, President Obama. It is not faux. It is illegal. And I'm not going to stop until I get some answers and until I get the accountability from Fairfax County. We don't have that yet. It's amazing to me that last Monday night in Spotsylvania County, some other parents took pornography that was in their libraries to their school board meeting, 2 other books which I've never heard of, and they got instant accountability. Their school board voted on the spot 6-0 to pull those 2 books and to do an audit of all of their library holdings. Now, hey, the system works, right? Where is my school board's action? They've done nothing. So I won't stop. But here's the problem. It's not just about, the idea that parents shouldn't have a say. There is an active movement happening in this nation, in every state, in a lot of school boards, by the school board members to intimidate parents from speaking up at all. It's a thing, and it's happening. And it's happening to me. And if you haven't been watching the news, you may not know it's actually happening in my hometown in Scottsdale, Arizona. So yesterday, the president of the Scottsdale Unified School District, Jan Michael Greenberg, is now under criminal investigation because he has a dossier of parents who spoke at school board meetings. He has personal records, he's photographed their children, and he has their divorce records. So there are people on school boards who want to intimidate parents from coming forward. And it's also happened to me here. I have threats against my family and against my children, but I will not be silenced and I will not be intimidated. And even yesterday, I was told that I should not come and speak at this event. But here I am. So, parents, never doubt for a second that local action on your part can equal national impact. Now, there's one more thing I want to say today, and that's about the materials themselves. What I found in the libraries is not just a local problem. It isn't just in Fairfax County. It isn't in Loudoun County. It's everywhere. This is a national effort. It was put into our system by I know not who. I'm starting to understand it may have something to do with the American Library Association, but until I get the answers, I don't quite know exactly what the mechanism is. Who is the entity? Who pays for these materials? It seems to me that it is a coordinated effort because it's national, but there's a problem. The biggest criticism
of my action in coming forward to expose this has come from the LGBTQ community. They are saying that I am anti-gay. They are saying that I'm here because I'm somehow opposed to the LGBTQ community. I am not. I would have come forward at my school board meeting and said all of the things I said if the characters depicted in those illustrations had been heterosexual. Okay? It's not about the gender of the characters engaged in the sex act. It's not about the sexual orientation of the characters that were engaged in the sex acts. It's never been about that. And I'm going to tell you a little something right now that I have not revealed publicly until today. I am the adult child of a gay parent. My mother, Gail, was a lesbian. So I actually was raised in the gay community. So I am one of them. And yet they are the ones who are attacking me the most viciously. My mother, God rest her soul, has passed away 5 years ago, but I can tell you that she would be mortified by the behavior and the things that my family has been subjected to since I spoke at my school board meeting. She would disavow her community because of the threats that have been made against her 6 grandchildren. And it shouldn't be happening like this. Because you know what? Porn in front of minors at school is bad. Porn is wrong. It's illegal in the presence of minors, and nobody should be defending it. So I hope that maybe by me identifying this part of my life to the public can end this argument, because there never should have been an argument about this in the first place. This isn't a political issue. I have parents come to me who are liberals. I have Democrat parents come to me and say, we are with you. We don't want our kids looking at pornography at the school library. The book was on the shelf in the comic book section next to the Avengers, next to Superman, next to the Black Panther. Do you want your child stumbling across this X-rated material accidentally? No. People of goodwill and common decency do not. So let's work together, because it's not about right or left. It's about right or wrong. And yeah. And this thing that I did, apparently it has struck a blow against the communists, because that's who the real enemy is. That's who we are fighting against. Never forget who we are fighting against. This effort of indoctrination and sexualization of your children and the grooming of your kids, it is being done by the communists. And don't let this moment stop here. Keep going, keep fighting, because God is on our side. God is with us. And if you keep up the fight, we will not fail, because God wins, and America will never be a socialist country. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Independent Women Forum and Tea Party Patriots, for inviting me here today. I'm Dr. Kat Lindley. I'm a mother of 5 and a family physician in Texas. I believe that this has been the longest 15 days to stop the spread for all of us. But one good thing that happened is that parents got together. It is important for parents like us to be a voice for our children. So far, we have learned that some of the mandates that we have to go through have actually been harmful for our children. Some consequences that arose from that are anxiety, depression, rise in suicide, drop in IQs. We also learned that our children need the bottom half of our face. They need to see it to process emotions, to process speech patterns. It is important for parents like us to be their voice, to actually weigh the risk and benefits of every decision that's made by people in power. Our children need to live life. They need hugs, they need sports, they need arts, they need to have fun. Our job as parents is to be active participants in their education and to demand transparency and accountability. As an immigrant of this great country, I just want to leave you with some last words. Our job as parents is to teach our children to love America again, to love its liberty, its freedom of choice, and its unique spirit of independence and curiosity. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maud Marin, and I'm a New Yorker. I'm a mom of 4 public school kids, and I am a parent who will fight for my kids and for all our kids, no matter how much we are lied to or lied about, and that's been happening a lot. But look, we parents know the truth. We saw it for a year and a half on our Zoom screens, on our kids' Zoom screens in our living room, and we've seen it in our school boards. For those of you who don't know, I was the school board president in New York City. I was on my school board for 4 years. The 2 consecutive terms just came to an end. So I have been to school boards as a parent protesting what's going on in schools, and I have been in school boards as the president of a school board listening to people who don't agree with me. And I can tell you, we don't need the FBI involved on either end. Look, there are parents who agree and disagree about what should be in our schools and what should be taught. That's why we need school choice. But the fact of the matter is, New York City schools right now are full woke. We have critical race theory in our curriculum. We have a real concerted effort to tear down merit-based admissions, to get rid of gifted and talented programs, to get rid of honors math program, and to say that somehow accelerated math or advanced science classes are racist. They've got it backwards. The thing that's racist is to assume that kids of all color can't do well in accelerated programs and in advanced high schools. The other racist thing that's been going on in our schools is affinity groups. Segregation is segregation even if you dress it up with this silly DEI title of an affinity group. When parents call me and say, Maud, my kid was ushered into a room because they're white or because they're Asian with the idea that they need to only talk about important issues with kids that look like them, that's segregation. Let's just call it what it is. It doesn't belong in our schools. So look, what I really think is I understand that not every parent agrees with me with what they want for their kids' education. That's fine, but that's why we need school choice. If you want a school with more CRT and more gender ideology, I think you're nuts, but that's your choice. I, on the other hand, don't want my young children being told that they might not really be a boy or might not really be a girl, so I should be able to send my children to a public school where they're treated, their human dignity, where they're treated with respect, and where they learn how to read and how to write, something that the New York City public school system has struggled mightily with. But look, a few days ago, I know I'm in D.C., but I'm going to make a New York City point here. A few days ago, our mayor met with an activist who is from an organization that was out on the streets last summer in our city, burning things and breaking down windows and making a big mess of our city. And that activist told our mayor, our future mayor, Mayor-elect Adams, that if he implemented the policies he campaigned on to improve public safety and reduce gun violence in New York City, that activist told our mayor-elect that there would be bloodshed and riots and fires in our streets. And here is my question as I stand down here in D.C. Merrick Garland, when you got this silly letter with no facts in it from the NSBA saying that parents speaking up at school boards were domestic terrorists, instead of laughing and throwing that piece of paper in the garbage can as you should have, you wrote back a letter saying you were going to create a federal task force. Well, when we have activists in New York telling our mayor-elect that there will be bloodshed and riots in our streets if he implements the policies he campaigned on, you know, where's the letter for that task force, Merrick Garland? Why aren't we hearing about the task force that's going to keep our cities safe from the kind of riots and violence that we experienced last summer? So I'd like to, say to Attorney General Merrick Garland, your silence is deafening. I hear it loud and clear. Finally, I'm going to say this. I am talking to parents here from the West Coast and from DC and from all over the place, and it's fantastic. And it tells me something about 2022. 2022 has a whole lot of elections coming up, and I am a lifelong Democrat. I haven't agreed with every single congressperson about every single thing that's been set up here, but when they're talking about education and the rights of parents to be involved in their kids' education, I agree 1,000%. And that's what I think anyone running for office, and I've done it, I know it's hard, anyone who's running for office needs to understand the old lines are breaking down. Parents are going to cross party lines, and parents are going to make decisions that are best for their kids. I'll close on this. Because I ran for office and because I was on my school board, a lot of parents would come up to me and ask who they should be voting for in the elections that just passed in New York. And one of the questions that always delighted me was when parents who had not been very politically active would say, did that person take money from the UFT? And I would tell them yes or no, because I paid attention to that. And if they were endorsed by the UFT, they would say, well, then now I know who to not vote for, because I am not voting for the people who shut down our kids' schools and put our kids last. So parents, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated, independents, if there's still a Green Party, any parent out there who cares about their kids' education is going to pay attention to who's really looking out for our kids and standing up for our kids. I know I will be, and I look forward to working with all the parents who are going to do the same. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Harry Jackson. I'm a Fairfax County parent, and I've got 3 kids in the Fairfax County public school systems. I've got a sophomore that goes to Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, the nation's #1 high school for the last 2 years in a row. A 8th grader at Rachel Carson Middle School. She's in the advanced academic program, and I've got a kindergartner, and from what I've seen what's going on in schools, we're homeschooling her right now. I'm following a lineup of some really great speakers, and you've heard a lot of crazy things that have been talked about. Like Maud, I've been a lifelong Democrat, but I'm a parent first. And you hear a lot of things, these crazy things, what Ian's gone through. I've experienced it myself. I can share you a little bit about my origin story. And yeah, I voted for Youngkin. I voted for school choice, and parents do absolutely have primacy in the children's education, and our work is not done. I mean, this election did signal that parents will not be ignored. But we have to be very clear. Like the other side, they are very dedicated to keeping us out of the classrooms. I mean, if you followed the Virginia election, you saw a lot of street signs that said, keep parents out of the classroom. Let's just tell you how absurd this is. When my son was admitted to the class of 2025, there was an article in Blue Virginia saying that there were no black students admitted to Thomas Jefferson. I'm like, well, excuse me? I'm one of 6 parents that were there. Then they have come across with a merit lottery system, which with surgical precision is aimed at the Asian community. And I'm like, what is going on here? I talked to the NAACP. This is an organization that's supposed to fight racism, right? Well, I go into the meeting. I'm only one of 3 black people there. It's all run by white liberals. And I lose it, and I get kicked out of the meeting. I'm like, excuse me? And then I'm called a segregationist. I'm like, now, just to give you guys a little bit of a background, I've been involved with Fairfax County Association for the Gifted. I run the diversity committee. I serve on the diversity committee for Thomas Jefferson PTSA. I also work with the Black Student Fund. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I was elected as the first president of the Thomas Jefferson Parent Student Teacher Association. Yeah, right? So talk about a racist organization. Right? So they want to they like to use the term as a parent. You have to be encouraged. They're going to call you a racist. Now, okay. They're going to call you a racist. If that doesn't work, then they're going to call you a terrorist. And even when you fight against critical race theory or critical race theory pedagogy, and then worse yet, you start fighting against pedophilia material. And I saw Stacey Langton talk about earlier. Yeah, I spoke up against that, and then I had the Virginia PTA try to organize a coup to have me removed as the president of the Parent Teacher Student Association because I was unwilling to promote what in their position papers where they talk about their library and social media review. And I'm a parent first, as I said before. I have to share you guys, especially with this book of the pedophilia material in the school libraries. This is a very serious issue. I'm pretending to be a private person, but I had a nephew when he was 11 years old. He got kidnapped. And we had to, he had to get tested 4 times a year for HIV. And the perpetrator not only kidnapped him, but he kidnapped another young child. Now, fortunately, my nephew, and it affected him to this day. He has mental health issues. The other child that was kidnapped, he wasn't so lucky. He did contract HIV. So this is very serious. This is a very serious scenario. You should not be putting in material in school libraries that lowers, that pushes boundaries in children and lets them be susceptible to grooming for predators. And what's worse and very concerning is that not only do you argue have these books pulled from the library and they want to mock parents for it, you actually have activists trying to argue to put them back in. And they'll even throw the race card, like with Mia Kobabe and Toni Morrison, are All Boys Aren't Blue. These are books that are depict graphic material between sex between children, sex between boys and men. It's absolutely wrong. So I'm not going to end the fight. I'm still going to be involved. And thank you for Parents Defending Education for having me come on board as an advocate to empower parents. And we do need school choice. And I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Justice, and I represent Moms for Liberty. I'm a mom of 4 public school children, and I'm excited to be here with you today. The first time that I said the words, "We do not co-parent with the government," I was sitting on a school board in Florida. I served 4 years on that school board, unpacking a lot of my own children's backpacks. I got to see firsthand behind the education curtain. Now, a year later, here I am standing in Washington, D.C., and "We do not co-parent with the government" has become a rallying cry for parents across this amazing country. There is nothing more frustrating than seeing your child denied the education they deserve and feeling powerless to change it. This frustration is what has mobilized parents across the country. Moms for Liberty, which we launched in January, has already expanded to more than 150 chapters in 33 states, representing almost 70,000 parents. Moms for Liberty across the country are embracing what is most amazing about America: the constitutional right to hold government accountable. We are not subjects to the government. The government is subject to we, the people. We are empowering parents to take back their fundamental rights to raise their own children. Unlike citizens of most nations, Americans elect education officials directly at the local level, allowing communities to decide for themselves who will help in the formation of their children. But our responsibilities as citizens do not end on Election Day. We continue to hold our elected officials accountable, and if they ignore our input, we will vote them out. Legislators, parental rights are not partisan issues. This isn't a Democrat thing. This isn't a Republican thing. This is a parent thing. Today, I issue a call to action for every school board member around this country. Repair the trust that parents once had. Here's how you do it: transparency, accountability, and collaboration. Find a seat for parents at the table. Instead of treating them as the problem, make us part of the solution. You won't find anyone more motivated in the academic excellence of their children than parents. Finally, my message to our parents: we have been pushed out of public education for far too long. If schools don't want to find a seat for you, you need to bring your own. These are our children. You have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing, education, and medical care of your children. Our Constitution protects your rights to address the government that serves you. Start exercising those rights. Parents, your instincts to protect your children are spot on. Now is the time to pull back the education curtain. Inspect what is being taught to your children. No one knows your child loves your child and invests in your child like you do. You are their best chance. They are America's best chance. Invest your time, talent, bravery, and heart in reinvesting and reclaiming our schools. Moms for Liberty will help you to be joyful warriors for your children's education. Please find a chapter near you. Go to momsforliberty.org, find a chapter near you, or start one. Together, we can reclaim our children's education. Thank you.
My name is Xi Van Fleet. I'm an immigrant from China. I spent my entire school years in Chinese Cultural Revolution. I can tell you what it was like when the government became the parent of school children, because I was one of them. We were taught that we were the most fortunate children in the entire world because we were born into the communist China. We own everything to Chairman Mao and the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. And they were our true parents. One of the popular songs we sang was, "Father is dear, mother is dear, but neither is as dear as Chairman Mao." The song is still sung today by the school children in China. Why did CCP want to play the role of parents? Because they understood to control education is to control the future. From the day CCP took power, the government took over the ownership of all Chinese children. Parents have no say regarding what should be taught and how. Schools were turned into indoctrination factories, and the CCP's giant brainwash machine has never stopped working. The Chinese Cultural Revolution gave us a full display of what the indoctrinated youth are capable of. They were the infamous Mao's Red Guards. These Red Guards carried out Mao's order like good soldiers, and many turned against their parents in defense of Mao. Nothing has changed since then. In Xi Jinping's own words, the goal of the Chinese education system today is to prepare builders and successors for the Chinese socialist cause. Here is my warning to American parents. The radical left wants to be more than just co-parents of our children. They want to be the parents of our children, just like Mao and the CCP. The radical left has already been so successful in turning our children into Red Guards. We saw the American Red Guards in action during the summer of unrest of 2020. But the left want more. They want to get our children as early as possible, even younger than K through 12. To achieve that goal, they want to silence parents who dare to speak up for their children. When that does not work, they resort to intimidation and inevitably force, just like Mao and the CCP. We parents are here today to say no. No, we do not want government to be co-parents of our children. No, we don't want indoctrination. No, we don't want Marxists and communists in ideology to hijack our schools. No, we are not going to give up our children to the government. Thank you.
I wore the wrong shoes here today. Hello, everyone. My name is Annetta Catchings. I ran for mayor of Alexandria. I cannot tell you how good it feels to stand here and know that we elected Glenn Youngkin and Winsome Sears and Mayares. You know, to be part of that movement was just amazing. So we got rid of our blackface governor and his enabler, and we put in a GOP leadership, and so we're looking forward to that, to all the good things to come. So I did not win my battle in Alexandria, but I tell people we did win the war, in that we have a GOP leadership. So Alexandria can expect some really positive things to happen because of it. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I work for American Airlines. I've been a flight attendant for about 32 years. I was married to a Marine for 25 years. Hoorah! And when I got to Alexandria, empty nester, divorcee, starting over again, I decided I was going to run for office. And a large part of it was due to what was going on with the George Floyd murder and seeing all the dead bodies in the streets. That whole thing had been building inside of me even prior to that. But when I saw that and I saw how our usual leaders, conservative leaders, were missing in action, and basically we had given over the reins and the voice of our community to organizations like BLM, I said I can't sit on the sidelines anymore, and I'm running for office. So when I got to Alexandria, yes, and when I got to Alexandria, I know how BLM, you know, when you get to Alexandria, you see a lot of BLM signs. And I knew that would be the group I was going to be coming after. And so I had to contend with that in my heart and in my mind. But you know, when you're the underdog, you just throw everything at it. So when I started this race, I was on the Larry O'Connor show, and he invited me on. Thank you, Larry. And I talked about, I was out with a lot of Democrat women, parents, who were holding signs saying, open ACPS. Parents want a choice, right? Didn't matter to me if they were liberal or conservatives. It was the right thing to do. And I remember BLM coming to one of the rallies. And, you know, usually BLM and Democrats are in bed with each other. So some of the parents were just like really shocked by it, and they were wondering why were they there. But aside from that, I want to say this. I was out there because it was the right thing to do. BLM, those groups advocating, the teacher unions, all of those organizations that were pushing the goalposts back, keeping our kids out of school, they were literally making criminals out of them. They were, because our kids were in the streets, our high-risk kids were in the streets with nothing to do. And they came back into the school system as criminals with records now. And nowhere can we say that was an unintended consequence. They knew what they were doing. They did not care because this was part of the big plan, right? So I start, you know, I'm in this race, and I'm gonna close this up because I can get long-winded here. But I was in that race. I started it advocating for kids. At the end of my race, we were holding up signs saying, return our SROs. And those are student resource officers. Again, city council knew what they were doing. They knew that by pulling those police officers out of the schools, they were going to see an uptick in crime. They knew that. And why did they do it? Who knows? Who cares? But I am so proud to be here with two of my friends here, Liz and Colleen, and they led a parents group Talk about the fire in the belly that God is putting in all of us. They led a parents group that challenged not only the school board, but our city council to refund our police. So along with my campaign, yes, my campaign echoed their sentiments. And together we were able to refund our police. And thanks to Youngkin, that seems to be something that we no longer have to fight, because I think he's going to make it mandatory to have them in the schools now. But I am just so pleased to be part of that movement. Talk about what parents can do. So I just wanted to recognize them out there. But guys, I want to close with this, talking about CRT. I think, years ago, I was fighting CRT and I didn't even know it. This was back in 2000. And when Obama says this is trumped up in our heads, it's not trumped up. It's not trumped up, and we all know it. My son had been asking me, Mom, let me test for the gifted program. And I tell him no, because he had a problem with self-disciplining himself, and I didn't want him going into that program, disrupting the process. So once he got to middle school, he asked me again. We were in San Onofre, California. And I said, okay, I'll let you test. So I go in, I talk to the administrator. I said, I want him to test for the gifted program. And she said, okay. So she gives me a sheet of paper. At the end of that paper, you're to arrive at, let's call it 17 points, right? And so I'm looking at this format, and she says, okay, if a teacher recommends him, he gets 5 points. If he's black, he gets 4 points. If English is not his first language, he gets these many points. And I looked at her and I said, we don't want any of those points. I just want him to come in, take the test, and if he passes, he gets in. And so she said, well, you're not going to get the 5 points that the teacher, that you would get if the teacher recommends. So don't you want the points for being black? And I said, no. And I told her, look, between my husband and myself, we've had over 10 years of college. He is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. What do we need with these points? Right? Right. It's merit-based. And so my son went in, he took the test, and a few days later we got the results. He scored the highest that any kid had ever scored on that test. I mean, I always knew he had a high IQ, yes. I always knew that. It was just about self-disciplining himself. And so when I told him that, guys, the light that came across his face, no one could ever take that away from him. He knew what he could do. He knew where he belonged. He knew that things came easy for him. And so I just want to say that is the course that we need to take. I don't want government coming in and telling my kid that you're not in control of your destiny, that you're not an agent of your own life, and that even if you work hard and you make good choices, because of the color of your skin, you're not going to do as well as this kid over here. I do not want government breaking the spirit and changing the minds that family, community, and church working together builds, right? So I'm wrapping it up. Thank you for listening to me, guys, and I appreciate your attention and your time. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Solis. I'm a stay-at-home mom from Rhode Island. I have a 5-year-old girl and a 2-year-old boy. I simply asked questions about what was being taught in my school, and now the Teachers Union, the National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union in the country, is suing me. That's right, because They don't want to answer my questions. I submitted public records requests, and the teachers union doesn't want the information coming out of my public records request, so they are suing a stay-at-home mom. I pulled my daughter out of public school because they taught a racially divisive curriculum and because they embed the values of gender identity in the classroom. Now, what does that mean, embed the values of gender identity? Well, it can mean a lot of stupid things. One thing it means at my school is they don't refer to the children as boys and girls. God forbid we offend reality. And then another thing it means is something right here. This is Policy 1236 at South Kingstown School District. You probably have a policy like this at your school too. This policy says that public school can assist in the gender transition of your child without your consent. Now let's call that what that is. This means it's illegal, and this means that your school can facilitate a sex change of your kid secretly. Now, how do they do that? Well, your child will live a double life. Your girl will be a girl at home, and then you can send your girl to school, and she's going to be a boy at school. They'll let her change her clothes into boy clothes. They will let her use the boys' bathroom. They will change her information in her official student records from girl to boy. They'll give her a new name that they'll encourage her to use. They'll even set her up with a government shrink. Some narcissistic social worker who got certified yesterday and believes that he's the savior of your child's gender, and now they're going to talk about their private parts with some government worker, and you're not going to know about it. And why is this a secret? How do they do this? Well, a bunch of stupid people in public school get together and have a meeting, and they decide whether you as a parent are safe for your own child. And if you're not safe for your own child, they are going to have a secret and intimate relationship with your child and your child's developing sexuality. And you know what that's called? Sexual abuse. Public school is sanctioning sexual abuse of children under the banner of social justice. And we are not going to stand for that. G. Venfley is right. They don't want to co-parent with us. They want to be the sole parent of our children. Moms and dads, you're just in the way. Step aside. We want your boy to be a girl and your girl to be a boy. There's only one way to fight back against that, and that is with school choice legislation. School choice legislation is the answer to public school tyranny. Push for it in your states. School choice legislation funds students, not systems. School choice legislation funds students, not child abusers. School choice legislation funds students, not toxic teachers unions like the ones suing me. Push for that in your state. Push for academic transparency in your state. And sue your school districts that are violating your constitutional rights to raise your girl as a girl, to raise your boy as a boy, to maintain your moral values, your political beliefs, and your religious values. Because these are my kids, these are your kids, but these are not the government's kids. Thank you.
My name is Jenny Gentles, and I'm a contributor to the wonderful Independent Women's Network. Everyone should sign up. A school choice advocate and a mother of 2 school-aged girls. Parents deserve power over their children's education. We've been hearing this all morning, and it's an exciting message that's true. For too long, the existing education system in our country prioritized the needs and desires of its employees. The teachers' unions ensured that union-backed candidates were elected into school board offices in order to implement union goals. For too many years, too many children have suffered under the existing adult-centered education regime, and we're saying enough. School boards repeatedly ignored parents' pleas for a year and a half in this area to reopen schools and to prioritize academic instruction. But Zoom school revealed the chaos of public school classrooms, and as a result, of both of these issues, parents here today and around the country are saying enough. It's time to empower families and develop policies that allow a wide variety of education options to flourish. Our country, as Nicole just said, must prioritize parental rights and education freedom rather than bureaucratic systems and union control. I live just across the Potomac River in Arlington, Virginia, and like many communities around the country, we experienced over a year of closed schools, disastrous remote learning, misspent emergency federal funding, refusal to meet the needs of children with disabilities, lowered academic standards, and a school board determined to ignore the impact of learning loss on students from low-income households. My school district closed in March of 2020 and didn't reopen until spring of 2021, when students were allowed to attend just for 2 shortened school days a week. This was unacceptable. My family story has a happy ending, though. I pulled my children out of the public school system and enrolled them in a small faith-based private school this year. It's wonderful, and my kids are thriving. The dedicated teachers and caring principal create a patient and positive atmosphere for students. Communication with parents is open and frequent. Academic instruction is transparent. The school even provided extra textbooks to keep at home for daily homework. So I am so thankful that my children are receiving an excellent education in a safe, caring environment. This experience has inspired me to fight even harder for school choice, because all students should have access to a quality education that allows them to develop their unique talents and acquire the knowledge and skills and values necessary to lead a fulfilling life. Over the last year, IWF has received hundreds of stories from families who suffered during COVID-era closures and are eager for expanded school choice options. Also, over the last year, support for school choice among K-12 public school parents has increased from 67% to 80%. So it's time for local, state, and federal officials to listen to parents. Unfortunately, that's happening. Parents are running for school board. States have expanded or introduced new school choice programs, and close to 20 state legislators have expanded or introduced new school choice programs in close to 20 states. And members of Congress are crafting a Parents' Bill of Rights. Also, hundreds of lawmakers from around the country are signing an Education Freedom Pledge. This can be found at edfreedompledge.com. And these lawmakers are pledging to support policies that promote parental rights in education and educational freedom. I encourage all governors and state legislators and members of Congress to sign the pledge as well. Please let parents and students know that they will be prioritized from now on. Parents' voices matter. Children's education matters. Let's put kids first. Fund students, not systems.
Great. What a great way to wrap up. We've heard so many great parents, and I was impressed. We put out the call to members of Congress inviting them to join us, and I was just thrilled by how many were able to show up. To close out, I want to read, we got a statement from U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn, who really wanted to be here, but I think it really encapsulates what we're talking about. She writes, "When we look back at the Biden presidency, I have a feeling we'll see a theme. Every single thing this administration has tried to do depended on the government forcing itself where it does not belong. Between business owners and their customers, between patients and their doctors, between parents and their kids. What's worse, all of these scenarios have something else in common. In every case, the bureaucratic activists in charge use the full force of government to try to intimidate and the people into silence. You all had a front row seat as they called on radical activists and biased members of the mainstream media to turn up the volume and transform American classrooms into a stump for political posturing. Their goal was to distract you, to drown out dissent, and to scare you into submission. Well, I'm happy to see that plan failed, because there's something we understand that these entrenched bureaucrats never will. The government is not a co-parent. Your rights as parents are under attack, which means now is your time to be more loud and more energized than the radical left. It's time to let Joe Biden and the Democrats know that nothing can replace the bond between a parent and their child. It's time to take a stand. But don't just do it for yourself. Do it for your kids, for your neighbors' kids. And they need an advocate, and you are the best people for the job. Thank you for being here and for keeping the faith." So that was from Senator Marsha Blackburn, but that's a great way to end. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to working with you in the future.